of the Mint Hill Planning Board for April 17th, 2023 at 6:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. We do have a quorum. If I can get Kenny to do invocation, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all the many blessings. We thank you for the town staff. We thank you for the volunteers here. We thank you for all the emergency service providers and police force. And we pray that you watch over all of us and guide us and help us make the right choices that glorify you, dear Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kenny. Approval of the minutes of the March 20th meeting. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Jennifer, second. Any changes, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, it passes, the approval of the minutes. Any additions, deletions of any agenda items? John, anything? Anybody here? Okay. Any reports? Old business, none. New business, we'll get right into it. Discussion and recommendation of ZC 23-3 filed by Gray Family Real Estate to request to amend the zoning plan for Superior Storage to increase the total square footage of the storage for Phase 2 for property located at 11207 Blair Road, tax parcel number 137-153-11. John, how you want to proceed with this?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone doing tonight?
You're good.
Good.
Fantastic. My name is Bill Gray. I'm co-owner of Superior Storage at current address is 11131 Blair Road. The lot in question is right next to us. And the reason why we're here today is back when we originally sought to open up the storage facility, we went through the rezoning process as that was a residential property at the time. And using a little bit of foresight, we went ahead and, requested to get the zoning approved for Phase 2 if and when the time came. I'm happy to say 5 years later, we are in a position where it's, we're ready to expand. For Phase 1, this was my first foray into the storage business. My background was a different industry. So when we put in the request for Phase 2, we were thinking that the square footage that we had put in for Phase 1 would be, adequate, as it were. And as it turns out, it's a little bit less than, I think, ideal for the space that we're taking up. With Phase 2, I will tell you that in terms of the footprint, we're using the same exact space. We're just utilizing it better. So we're not expanding in terms of the acreage that we requested to use. We're just merely using that space a little bit more efficiently.
All right. Questions, starting out with Eric.
Is the design pretty much similar to Phase 1? I mean, sticking with similar structure?
Yes, it will, basically it'll be identical in that we'll have the brick veneer on the east and the west ends of the buildings, which was a request that was made with Phase 1. It'll be the metal buildings. It'll have an asphalt parking lot. So it'll be pretty much exactly like Phase 1.
That's all I got.
Kenny? Anything?
Yeah, I don't really have much. I appreciate you attending. Would this be gated with, will it be accessed?
Will it be gated?
Yes.
Yes. In fact, it will actually tie into the existing gate that we have there on the property. Phase 1, we completely enclose it with the gate. It's gate access only, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's very well lit. Duke Power did me a favor, put in a couple of extra light poles than we were expecting. We actually have motion lights inside of every unit so that when you're in there at night, you can actually see what you're working on. And so it's very well lit.
Okay. No, I think that's it.
All right, Chip?
Yeah, will this be multiple buildings or just one building?
It will be a total of six buildings.
And how many units? Will all the buildings be the same size?
They will not. We were originally hoping to put in, the phase one was a 20 by 100 foot pad, and then we made 10-foot wide units. I was hoping to do that with phase two, but because of the setbacks on the north side of the property, I had a choice of either kind of pushing things in a little bit, or I would have had to have put in a very large brick wall, which would have made it kind of cost prohibitive. So the pad sizes are going to differ a little bit. We'll have, the mix is going to be, we'll have your standard 5 by 10, 10 by 5s, 10 by 10s. We'll have a lot of 10 by 20s. We're going to have some 15 by 25s, some 15 by 30s. So it's going to be a little bit more of a mix with this phase.
And the photos that we had in the plan, so pretty much everything is going to look exactly like the
Correct.
brick and, okay.
Correct.
Good. That's all I got.
All right, Jennifer, anything?
I don't have anything.
I have one question. The elevation is quite a bit different where your first set is and where your second set is. I mean, hey, are you going to have to grade that, or how are you going to do that? Because it looks like you got almost continuous paving down through there.
And that is correct. We are going to end up grading that. I asked Brian Crutchfield, who is with Timmons Engineering here in town. I asked him to be here tonight because I know there was going to be some questions regarding that. So if you are all okay, I will turn that over to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you'll give us your name and address, please.
Sure. I'm Brian Crutchfield with Timmons Group, 610 East Moorhead Street in Charlotte. As Mr. Gray said, we're designing this site for him, and as you noted, the grade does step up the hill a fair amount from current. So what we're doing is we're starting at the property line and grading down as quick as we can to the back of those buildings, and then we kind of terrace the site per building pad with access points in between. So we'll slope a little steeper on the uphill side, a little flatter on the downhill side to be able to pitch everything to the middle. And this plan we've got on the screen here shows kind of the drainage system that will capture the water in between the buildings. But just by the nature of these buildings and how they need to be arranged, we kind of have to pad things out. But you can see on the north side, we've got a pretty good sized slope with a ditch to capture water that's coming to us from off-site down. But this new site will be graded or be set more at the level of the existing facility that's there today.
Okay, so you're basically going to terrace it.
Correct. Yeah, there's limits of how much we can terrace it, like we can't step down footings in these buildings very easily, but, yeah, the upper building pad will be a little higher than the next building pad and then the next building pad as well.
All right, I think that's my answer to my question. One other question for you, Mr. Gray. The color here will be the same as the original, the color of your metal part
Yes.
and the brick
Yes.
style? Okay.
Yes. We'll match it as best we can. Sometimes brick lots are a little different, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Anybody got anything?
I do have one real quick, Tom, if you don't mind. I didn't see
no problem.
the topo in the packet. I see you're grading down behind the existing facility.
I'm gonna,
You said behind the existing facility, so on the north side, you mean? Or on the west?
West side.
Okay, yeah, so basically there's a buffer that we have to establish over there. That's kind of that hatched out area where we can't put any parking or buildings or anything like that. But we are directing, as I mentioned, that swale on the north side that's capturing that water. That's kind of our diversion where we're diverting water, what we call clean water, coming from off-site around our site, so we don't have to take all of that into our pond. So there is some grading just to tie the grades out on that side, but no, we can't develop in it really.
I was talking about the grading on the back side of the existing facility. I can see the grade into that berm.
you
I
see
see the grading that
All the way
extends down behind
yeah.
the,
And basically that is because we're capturing that water on the north side behind the buildings and taking it around The west side, we didn't want to just have it spill out, so we're actually tying that into the swale that's kind of at the southwest corner of the site. So that's the only reason for that, is to tie that grading and that swale in to existing. But no other, we're not going to regrade anything else on the Phase 1 side. It's just being able to daylight that ditch around the west side.
So the contours, proposed contours to the left there. You're cutting into the hill, correct?
Correct.
So what is the need to disturb or grade this area that's in that buffer?
Are you saying here,
Yes,
right here in this area? Or
to the
this
left,
area?
yeah, that.
That, yeah,
Okay.
so that is in the center of that grading is the ditch. So you can see where we have those contours on the north side, and there's a few arrows that kind of show up. It's hard to see at that scale. But there's a few arrows that show up. It's actually a ditch or a swale that gets piped or gets ditched around the site.
So you're bringing it around through that swale.
That's correct. And we've got a little bit of a cut slope there as well, just to be able to tie those grades out.
Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, I just didn't see the need. I see
Yeah.
the tree line now. I just
Right.
curious as to why the grading was extending so far to the south.
Right. That is, we'll take a closer look at that, because now that I'm looking at it, I think some of that grading was already done with Phase 1. And I think those contours got carried out. We will have to tie in our grades into those contours, but, probably not to the extent that's shown on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we as-built that after it got constructed. Is the reason why it's tied out like that.
All right. Anybody got anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for a recommendation.
I will make a favorable motion for case ZC 23-3, existing zoning IGCZD, proposed zoning amendment to previous approved zoning plan. Property owner is Gray Family Real Estate, applicant also Gray Family Real Estate, location 11207 Blair Road, tax parcel 137-153-11, and this is contingent upon the specification that the building material and composition used for Phase 1 will be replicated for Phase 2.
We need a statement. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, it's consistent.
Okay. ZZ 23-3 is found to be consistent with the land use plan. The land use plan indicates industrial light. Light industrial areas are intended to support a mix of innovative businesses that can benefit from the coalition of related complementary industries. The mix of uses range from light industrial operations and marketplace to supporting office, retail, and surface users. Therefore, ZC 23-3 is found to be reasonable and in the public interest based on the information presented and reviewed with this petition.
Thank you, Chip. Can I get a second?
Second.
Kenny seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? So the motion passes.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, moving right along, discussion and recommendation for ZC 23-4. Let me put my reading glasses on so I read the right one. Filed by Ed Byers to request a conditional zoning to construct a new building next to the existing building for property located at 4500 Morris Park Drive, tax parcel number 135-30104.
Great. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ken Helfing, and I reside in Charlotte, and I work at 4500 Morris Park with OH Capital Assets and OH Morris Park, which owns the property there as well. Orlando Hernandez is the owner, and as I said, I'm general counsel there. Orlando Hernandez, he is the epitome of the American living dream here. He's Cuban descent, went from having his mom shot in front of him to living in the streets and shoveling poop at the dog kennels and Miami dog races, to now owning multi-million-dollar aircraft business, or aircraft commercial parts business. And he moved his business from Miami to Monroe in 2003. In 2017, he then purchased this property and brought his business here, where we have the existing business that you, or building that you now see. But to the right of that, there's a large pad that's right next to it that's just growing grass and tomatoes. He has an incredible vegetable garden, but he'd rather grow business, grow revenue, more jobs. So he wants to put a 12,000 square foot facility, one building, 4 units, basically flex space, office front, and then warehouse in the back. It's going to be brick facade, still building, brick facade, match the buildings that are currently there, which is the whole park. If you're not familiar with the park here at Morris Park, it's right off of Lebanon. Great. And that's it. That's the presentation. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain them. And I also have Frank Arugi, just in case you need any technical information. Frank is our contractor.
All right. Start with Jennifer.
Hey.
I am not seeing, I don't have any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chip?
Yeah, and the only concern, it's not really a concern, but the two-story facility, it is two-story, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. What's the appearance of that going to look like in comparison to the other buildings around it?
It's our intent to make it look just the same. He is an incredible man. He wants it to be meticulous. If there's a blade out of whack, he's calling the landscaper to come by and change it.
Well, and
he
I can
wants that
see
to be
by
the same.
by that too. It's just the two-story. Is it going to tower over everything else? How's it going to look with the rest of the
think so.
facilities around there?
They designed to be, I'm sorry, they designed to be.
Could I get you to come to the microphone and give us your name and address, please?
My name is Frank Arugi. I'm the general contractor for the site, and I've helped Mr. Orlando Hernandez to design the property to be identical to his building, his existing building, you know. So the structural from front appearance gonna be identical to what he already has at Morrison Park.
Okay.
And if I may add to that, Mr. Todd, the, your comment that would it tower over, right?
Yes.
Likely not, and for the reason as well, this is all the way tucked in the very back corner. Behind is large, expanse of trees, and there's nothing else back there. There's, what is it, Serve Pro, which is near it, but it's not gonna tower over anybody.
Yeah, because I just don't know what the topography of the land is back there, because it could be a little bit lower and the
It's
tower.
the same.
It's the same all the way
It's
across.
exactly the same, sir.
Okay.
It's flat.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
been surveyed and designed by us to be identical to his building. And I think last week, the only question came that, have we decided to break the rear end of the building, which in original conversation, we had not, but we have already addressed and have already instructed the structural engineer to design the break of the rear building. So it matched the entire Morrison Park.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
Kenny, anything?
To that point, what is the height? I can't really read the writing. What is the height of that building, the proposed building?
From the front.
Well, I think at the highest point.
Yes, sir. The building is designed to slope from front to the back. So the back is 20 feet and the front is about 32 feet.
Okay. All right. And the only other question I have is, I guess this was grassed area currently?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The retention pond, everything is already in existence, and the site was approved originally at the time of purchase, based on my understanding, for being able to expand. However, I think maybe something has happened during the process, and rezoning is a process we have to go through. But the owner's intention at the time of purchase was that such a building could be added to his property. So everything is in place. The retention pond, I believe all has been inspected by you guys, and everything is in place. And there is no change of elevation, anything that's gonna happen to the site. Everything is existing.
Okay, and this may be a question for John. I take it when it was approved initially, if this area was considered to be impervious,
Yes, sir.
then the pond, when was that permitted? Because if it was permitted before the water quality requirements come in, I was just wondering if that BMP is going to be able to provide the water quality requirements.
So they're not going to be subject to the PCO, post-construction ordinance. But they do have a detention facility in the back. And I did send that to Mecklenburg County's plan reviewer. He felt there was no issue with it. And really, that was the only thing he was going to look for, is just make sure it was sized appropriately. But more important than that, what we find with a lot of these older detention facilities is they've been neglected. Oftentimes, people don't even know they have them there. Business owners have no idea. But this one actually had been well kept.
Okay.
So it was in really good shape. So that was a good thing for them, because that can be a costly repair. So, yeah, no added BMP. It looks like the detention was sized then to accommodate expansion. So it looks like
So it's
they don't
really,
have to add.
Before, I'm sorry, before even moving forward with the idea, I hired a civil engineer to kind of assess the idea and go through due diligence. So based on his findings, everything was fine with the city of Mint Hill, everything. However, at the end, the question came up that rezoning or reconditioning need to be applied for. So, you know, the retention pond, impervious, everything already was studied up front, prior to even designing the building and submitting anything to the town or the city.
okay, like I said, I just making sure that the original permit included the impervious area, and therefore,
Yes, sir.
if it was done before the water quality requirements kicked in, then it's grandfathered, but if not, okay, thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Eric?
Yeah, just a few quick questions. From what I recall, that stand of trees that's between 51 and the edge of this property, it's kind of high canopy pines. I mean, it kind of looks like it on this.
This is deep, this is well, you can't even see the building from 51. This
So
is
this
like on
isn't the one that's, you can kind of see through the woods there? I mean,
I've never been able to see it.
I guess my question would be, which elevation are we looking at that's facing 51? Because the building kind of sits at an angle there.
I guess it would be what would that be? The
Building at
east,
an angle?
the east side of it?
Is that going to be the
I'm not
east
sure.
elevation?
Yeah, I think.
The east side would be where the loading dock is. Is it not?
No, loading would be towards the northeast, because that would be in the back, because they're still going north. So it'd be the east side, so you wouldn't be seeing the loading dock, if that's the question, you'd be seeing the brick facade.
Okay, yeah, and that was pretty much my question.
Okay, yeah.
And then the loading dock, I guess on that backside, that's going to be the only one that's not a brick
No,
facade?
so the mayor brought up the suggestion, originally it's planned as a three-sided brick, but then the mayor brought up the suggestion, he says, hey, you know, the whole park's kind of all brick, so can you do that? And we went back and I texted Orlando and I said, they like a brick, and he says, okay, you know, might add more money, of course, but he says, we'll do what we got to do. He wants everything to be perfect
Gotcha.
anyway.
And just a follow-up question, let's see, expecting to expand the business, more jobs?
No, these are going to be rented out to others, although the idea is to rent it out to others. But he's also half considering bringing one of his other businesses. There's so many different ideas. He might bring another business that he owns in Miami and bring that and those people here. You know, he may also expand into there as well. He can. He just sold another airplane parts business, but the main goal is to rent it out to others. It just sort of depends on who's interested, who bites, and what his mood is in the morning, kind of thing. But he's a visionary. I mean, that's what he does. He's pretty incredible. You know, he's humble. He's like I said, certified minority owned business, and he'd be embarrassed if I told you how much he was worth. And he just walks around in a t-shirt and shorts, drives a nice car. He's got one, just one only. But he wants everything to be perfect, and he wants this to be right too. He just looks at the grass and he says, we can do something with this. We can do something with this. You saw the square with the vegetable garden, but we want to do more than that. So,
That's all I got.
Yeah, when I was out there today, I noticed a lot of steel and roofing and stuff.
yeah, well, he purchased that prior to COVID, and we had planned to start the building, and then part of the zoning came up, and then the materials came up, so he says, all right, just load it up and throw it there. And good thing for him, because he got it at a little bit better price when supplies
Yeah.
or this existed. But he had hoped to start building earlier, and then, this hurdle came up, and here we are.
So there's no, with that brick veneer on the back, there's no problem with the steel that you have now or anything, right?
No, shouldn't be.
I'm sorry if I may address.
Sure.
The reason all the steel, everything is there because when we start working on design and everything, and order all the building, we had done the due diligence with the county and the city and everything, and we were not aware of this.
Conditional use, yeah.
This additional use that's gonna come
Understand.
up. So everything was ordered. However, when I spoke with him today, prior to leaving to Miami, he told me, he said, my desire has always been to break the back anyway, to match my building, so that's not an issue to me.
Yeah,
So,
super. All right, thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else got anything?
Just got one follow-up question on
Yes, sir.
potential clients. I mean, you kind of alluded to some that you may have, possibly moving some business in there. And this is all warehouse space, correct? It's all
Well, with
warehouse?
office in the front, but yes.
Yeah. So any idea who may be, so you haven't gotten that far yet? Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's all I got. I was just curious on that.
Yeah, understand. All right, if I can get a motion on a recommendation?
Approved.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that CZ 23 is found to be consistent, 24 is found to be consistent with the land use plan. The land use plan indicates light industrial areas are intended to support a mix of innovative business that can benefit from the co-location of related complementary industries. The mix of uses range from light industrial operations and market spaces to supporting office, retail, and service uses, and be approved favorable recommendation.
Do you want to add anything about brick, just to make sure we've got it in there?
Oh, yes, and provided
Rear elevation.
that the rear elevation consist of brick to match the existing facility, the remaining sides.
All right, thank you, Kenny. Can I get a second?
Second.
Eric seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yes.
Have a nice night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along. Discussion and decision on S 23-6, Chasewood subdivision, filed by Tom Platt, American Engineering, for preliminary subdivision approval, property located at 11,000 Coble Road, tax parcel number 139-131-02. John?
This is by right subdivision in the ETJ. Here's the ordinances met. I know that they are working with the fire marshal and fire chief on some fire matters, but as I understand it, that's worked out. So I think a lot of those details are going to be spelled out in the engineering plans. I think that's about it. If maybe the applicant, if you're welcome to run through this if you want. Just give a little brief introduction.
What am I doing? Tom Platt of 8008 American Center Way, with American Engineering, of course. So we've been working on this plan for a little while now. It's gone through one previous approval. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of that, but I believe in 2008 it already had gone through that approval, and then just a function of that time and economy, they bailed on it, but since then, we had not changed our total proposed lot count. So we had gone through the same process, obviously, or any that have changed up until now, but since then, the plans have actually received the driveway permit and approval on that first iteration, and I believe it went through the sketch planning, but that brings us here today. So we have changed just the lots minimally to conform to the current standards that have since changed since 2008. And they will be on well and septic. So it's currently farmland, and we are preserving as much of the existing tree canopy and vegetation that is out there now, which is usually difficult on a typical development, but given that these are on well and septic, the minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet, so they're nice, wide parcels, and I think it's a plan that we're proud of, so.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, can you speak to the watershed that's going through the property? It looks like a creek. I mean, is it usually full of water? Is it just like runoff?
Yeah, I don't believe it's a jurisdictional stream. We're not doing any impacts that would warrant a submittal of coordination with the Army Corps. We have been asked by county stormwater to analyze that with a 100+1 storm event. So we provided those in our engineering calculations and on a flood study plan. So essentially it's a no rise to show that you aren't, I guess, increasing or exaggerating the scenario by developing this parcel. So the low point on site is in the top right. So the drainage, existing drainage, there's a high point about the top left of the site, but we are keeping majority of that drainage pattern as existing, but the site is large enough that there is no significant impact that we are changing that existing topography.
That's all I
We'll
have.
have 2 dry ponds and 1 wet pond, which also serve for fire protection.
That's all I got.
Kenny?
Yeah, will this be curb and gutter, or is this going to be ditch section roadways?
Yes, these have curb and gutter, sorry. And then storm structures as well. So we have storm system conveying that water in addition to a series of ditches and swales where it's feasible. But this site is treated and sufficiently sized with RCP pipe. So these will be NCDOT roads, to my understanding. So we have coordinated with them on any other modifications that need to be met there.
Okay, so you're going to have storm drainage with curb and gutter, and I guess you said there's going to be 2 dry ponds?
Correct. The top right is BMP 1, the middle to the right is BMP 2, and then at the center part of the site, there's a smaller pond. That is a wet pond. All 3 ponds meet detention requirements. We are not required by the PCSO to provide any additional or redundant treatment in regards to quality. So we are adequately meeting all of those standards with the provision of these 3 ponds.
Okay. And then what is the access easement coming off of the one cul-de-sac for?
It's a great question. That was a specific request by either county or Mint Hill fire. My understanding is it provides a redundant form of egress or additional egress for fire protection. That was at their request and makes no difference to us if we're able to provide that. And in the hypothetical situation that those 2 lanes were blocked, or sorry, the intersection in the, right at the culvert was blocked, that they would still have access through the remainder of the site.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
So,
Chip?
Mr. Chairman.
Anything?
John, you said, yes, thank you. John, you said there were some concerns, the fire marshal had some concerns. I honestly can't read what the notes are under this. Can you kind of share with us what that is?
I'll try. I mean, he'll probably know more about this than me, but as I understand it, and this was early on in the conversations about this project, because this is well, there was a concern about not having adequate water supply if a truck showed up. And so I think the agreement and what the fire marshal was pushing for, and I understand will be done, is there's going to be a pond that I think the detail that they were trying to work out was there's some contraption, something to where they can hook their hose, I'm assuming, to the pond and extract the water. So that's the detail that they were trying to work out.
Okay.
And from what I've been told, that note's been on the plan, the fire marshal's on it, and he is, matter of fact, when he approved the sketch plan, he put the note up there that that detail will need to be shown on the construction plans. So, and the fire chief, our fire chief has been in conversation with the fire marshal to make sure that that happens. And he felt pretty confident that it looks like it's all going to work out. Initially, he was going to be at this meeting to discuss it, but he felt like it wasn't needed anymore.
Okay, okay. That's fine. I couldn't read it on the plan here. I just wanted to get,
I wish I can't remember the name of it, but it is some structure that is in the pond, and there's a
Right.
very particular detail that's needed. But that's how they're able to, I'm assuming, hook to it and
Yeah.
get the water out of the pond so they can fill their trucks up and then take care of it.
but they're comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay. that's
Well,
good.
they're comfortable with stating that the detail is required. They have not seen the detail yet,
Okay,
but they're comfortable knowing that the way the sketch concept plan was approved, that was a condition that that detail had to come onto the construction plans.
yeah, I think the details are slightly insignificant, but the main intent of narrowing down a spec product is having a vertical turbine pump that can adequately provide that draw from the pond. Because you can provide a pump that basically is like a sump pump. It draws water out of your basement, or you can provide, a little bit more specifically catered system. And it's not often used, but it is sufficiently provided. So they'd like to see the details and calculations, which we're able to provide. But the initial pass on it is, we're in the same understanding, so.
okay. Yeah, I just need a little clarity. Okay, it was a little too small for me to read on here. Thank you.
And you're saying this note here that I'm?
Yes, yeah, you
Okay,
said-
that's probably not the note I'm referring to. This is probably just his
Yep.
standard
it.
requirements. He puts this
Yeah.
on all, yeah.
Right, right, right.
That's what it looks like.
Okay, but yeah, you clarified that.
Yeah,
If I recall, it was on the approved sketch plan.
I think the fire
Correct.
marshal, yeah, he put the note on the sketch plan.
Chip, anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Jennifer, anything?
I'm good.
Yeah. The only concern I have is just, and it's per code, is the one egress in and out of there. I mean, that's 61 homes in there. Plus, Coble Road is not what I would call a real well-maintained road. I mean, that's going to be a lot of traffic on that road. What's your time frame for building this?
Ideally, we would have permits in hand to be able to break ground before end of the year. Our initial conversations with DOT and then for fire access between County Fire and Mint Hill Fire, what is proposed in 2008 and now sufficient. We're also stubbing out for two future connections to the north.
So, okay. All right, I don't have anything else. Anybody? Anything else? If not, go ahead, Ken.
I'm sorry, me again. I
Yeah, go
forgot.
ahead. No
I meant to ask, when you say the well and septic, is it going to be a community well or individual wells for each lot?
Individual well. And another note that the county was adamant about having, which we're absolutely used to having, making sure that each one of those lots are individually tested for soil, for the perk test, and then they are individually permitted.
All right. And then one last thing, I mean, I see that John had zoomed in on the notes. Typically, fire hydrants have to be so far from every house. And I was just wondering, would it be possible to convert BMP 2 and 3 into a wet pond so that you could put a dry hydrant in those as well for fire?
Potentially those ponds fit well there and best for stormwater, given their elevations. So it's gonna be a lot harder to draw out of those ponds, but also twofold, given the spacing of the hydrants that we're proposing, we're able to meet that fire spacing. So I don't recall the exact spacing. It's changed a couple times between Mecklenburg County and Charlotte, but I want to say it's 500 foot and then 150 foot hose lay, which is basically the equivalent of that truck being able to connect to that booster pump or connect to a hydrant and then use their in-truck system to boost that into, they can go 500 feet away from that hydrant and then 150 foot further with their actual hose lay.
So when you say fire hydrants, that would suggest to me that there's going to be a water system installed in the development.
Correct. There's multiple hydrants that we are proposing on site, including on Coble Road. So we're actually providing a form of better fire protection for those existing homes as well.
But I mean, if you're going to have a fire hydrants within the development and they're fed by a water system, what is the need for the wells for each individual lot?
Domestic for drinking water.
The well is off, the fire hydrants are off the pond. That's why you're putting the pump in the pond, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to
They're
have,
feeding, that's
you're
what
gonna
I
have a
understand, they're
pump.
feeding they're going
It's
to
not
take
gonna
and
be-
feed their own fire hydrant in some of that pond. How big is that pond?
The pond's actually small, relatively compared to the others, but it does serve stormwater management and fire protection for this cause. So
y'all will go through the calculations to make sure you can sustain the 1,500 gallons per minute for 1 hour. And that pond has that volume of water.
correct. So we've already sized those preliminarily, and when we subsequently submit in the next round, I'm sure those will come up as a comment, because it's still in for review in EPM right now with the county, but I would expect that to come back as a comment anyway. So we provide those, usually when asked, but those are, something we analyze, but
Okay. And then one final thing, I see the hammerheads. I don't see any easements around those will you be providing easements around those hammerheads until they can be eliminated when the connection's made in the future?
if I recall, they do have an easement, or at least they should, within the public right-of-way, and then there should be a stub off, but
Yeah, I just didn't see any easements around the hammerheads themselves, but,
we can provide that.
yeah, okay. That's all I've got, Chairman.
I do have one other question. The road out there, Coble Road, will y'all come in and curb and gutter y'all section of that? Sidewalks and whatever? I can't tell off of this.
Our discussions with DOT had not requested curb and gutter. Ultimately, the water is going into the ditch section on our side of the road, so curb and gutters would probably complicate that. So we were just having a ditch section
Are there sidewalks?
and then sidewalks, correct?
Sidewalk along the road
Yes, sir,
and in the facility?
along the full length.
That kind of meets what we've done with other people out in the county, right, John? With the ditches or not?
Yeah, on DOT roads, they rarely are gonna, I mean, matter of fact, they really don't like curb and gutter. So,
Yeah.
usually when you're in the ETJ or it's state-maintained roads, we would not require curb and gutter. Unlike our streets, we're always gonna require curb and gutter.
Yes.
In the downtown, there's, of course, some of these state streets, we do require it, but typically we don't. And I don't think I even realized, you said you were doing sidewalk on Coble Road?
Correct.
Yeah, DOT's even pushed back on that lately, so that's maybe a conversation we'll have. They have come to the towns and said, hey, if you guys require sidewalks, we're no longer gonna take care of them, we're gonna throw that responsibility on you. So it kind of put us in a position of, do we want to send maintenance people out there to deal with a sidewalk in an ETJ area?
Yeah.
So we're still having that conversation. There's been times where we see it makes sense to put it in, and we're willing to kind of take it on because it's kind of connecting to a system of sidewalk. But when it's just a sidewalk out in the middle of nowhere, and no real possibility of connection, I don't know, that might be something where
Yeah.
we may
In
not
my
even
opinion,
want
a pocket installment like this is sort of obsolete until you start developing adjacent to it. What I've seen recently in several other projects and in the same division as DOT that's reviewing this, they've had us put notes on the plans that specifically sequence the installment of that curb and gutter and then the sidewalk to say that, developers should, you should grade it out, but don't build it until this parcel is accepted into the city limits or annexed in. So I don't know if that would quite apply here, but
Yeah, that's kind of the options they've discussed. We've looked at several different ways of, and that could be something, but I don't think I realized you had it on Coble Road, so we'll just talk about it. But yeah, it's just something I mean, if they were planning to do it anyway, we'll look at it, but it may,
they've accepted it from we've addressed all their comments from their
oh,
first round.
they accept it, but then they slot us a resposibility, they
have to
say,
maintain
here,
it.
here, town, here's,
They
this is
did
your.
kick back on the 88 ramps. 'Cause they
Okay,
believe those didn't bring any pedestrians anywhere useful, so.
yeah.
So on that note, is there sidewalk required internally?
Yeah, that sidewalks are on the internal streets, yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Sidewalks and curb and gutter, or just sidewalk?
Sidewalk one side, I believe.
What about curb and gutter?
Curb and gutter on both sides.
All on the internal side? Yeah, okay.
These conform to initially the Mecklenburg County
Their standards manual.
road sections, yes.
And John, I take it no turn lanes required, not that they could fit one in, but
I don't think there was any, I don't think they suggested any improvements for Coble Road.
Correct.
But you said you don't have to get a permit to cross that creek from the Corps of Engineers?
My understanding, we do not have to get a permit for impacts to that stream. It would be I believe it would be a stream buffer impact with Charlotte, or Charmac Stormwater.
Okay.
But to be determined, if I recall, I said that we had submitted, and it's still technically in for review on EPM for the first submittal. So this was the last item that I believe would allow that to close cycle.
Yeah, if it's a swim buffer, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a jurisdictional stream. So to get that road across there, you're going to have to impact it.
And Kenny, usually they probably would already know that by now. When Jonathan Rett, the plan reviewer at Mecklenburg County, when he reviews these sketch concept plans, he usually will point that out. Hey, you need to work with Army Corps. So if he hasn't said that, probably means he doesn't think there's a requirement.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, the project was sitting around for a while before I essentially picked it up and took ownership of it. So there may have been coordination, or it's already been submitted. I'll have to check back on that, but we could update you with what we find. But of course, if there's any impacts that warrant a permit, then that's what we'll
Have no choice, yeah.
what we'll go for. But as far as a design that preserves the integrity of the stream, what's there, or whether it's a ditch, wet stream, however you classify it, the least impact that we're providing is from a culvert crossing. So,
Anybody, anything else?
I'm good.
If not, I'll entertain this is a decision, this is our decision, so it's a decision.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve S 23-6, Chasewood subdivision filed by Tom Platt with American Engineering for preliminary subdivision approval. Property located at 11,000 Coble Road, tax parcel number 139-131-02.
All right. Approval meaning a favorable decision.
Favorable decision. Yeah.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Chip. Any more discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any abstain? Any noes? All right, we're good. You're approved.
thank you, everyone.
Yes, sir. All right. Anything else, John?
Yes, sir.
Anybody got any other business? What were you going to ask about?
Oh, yeah, John, the town comprehensive plan, where are we at on that? Is that just kind of dormant right now?
Well, dormant,
Is that may not be the right term, but
Probably is.
pretty close to it.
probably is. Yeah, it's sitting there. It's
So
ready for
who owns the baton on that now? I mean, is it us?
whoever. Yeah, I mean, we can, for the most part, what those are mostly used for is the development community. You know, when they're interested in maybe looking at a piece of property and trying to find a good use for it, they'll reference it. We haven't done much with it yet, you know, as part of, you know, as far as our part.
Right.
You know, so if you remember, that plan had some like goals and things like that, and we haven't really pushed. A lot of those were already really occurring though. So I don't know if I think we went through a long list of those goals, and a lot of those were kind of already in motion. I mean, there's things that, you know, Brian and the mayor have been working on, so a lot of that. But as far as, I mean, we've had, if you remember that 218, that was an area they really focus on. We definitely have a lot of interest. There's property owners that have been trying to sell, so they've been keeping a close eye on this.
Oh, and by the way, those fields look great down there.
Yeah, they did turn up nice.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of 218, they're looking at that. You know, the complication there is just the sewer is going to be very difficult. Downtown, we've had a few conversations with some folks, but it's just so early because there's a lot of town land. If you remember, a lot of that downtown revolved around the town selling land, and the town's just not at that place yet to where they want to start to. So we've had some people call and interested in buying town land, but I've told them it's just premature to start talking about that now.
Okay.
So other than that, that's about it. That's sort of what it's used for now, more of a reference.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Or we can stay if you want.
Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Chip makes a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
Aye. Jennifer, second. All those in favor, aye? Aye.